Hello, everybody, and welcome to the inaugural Hidden Gems podcast with Mr. Hidden Gems himself, Craig Tuch. How are you doing, Craig?
Good. How are you doing, Roland?
I'm not doing bad at all. Well, people are probably wondering, who are these guys? What is going on? So why don't you tell us?
Well, I think people almost know you more than me because we have a lot of your content on the site. But my name is Craig Tuch. I started Hidden Gems back in 2015, and we've sort of been evolving it ever since, trying to figure out new ways to help authors grow their careers. Self-publishing is not an easy thing, and we all kind of have to figure it out ourselves. But if we can sort of lean on each other to get some help every once in a while, that makes it a lot easier. So that's sort of what we're always trying to do.
Well, first of all, for everybody who's just dialing in for the first time, tell us, what is Hidden Gems and where did it start?
Sure. I'm just putting my phone on do not disturb. So Hidden Gems, we started off as the ARC service that most people know us for, helping authors get reviews for their books. And, from there, it sort of grew into what I had always kind of hopefully envisioned it as, which was more of an author services company. So we're still obviously doing the ARC reviews, and we're going to always do the ARC reviews. But, we do other things now. We help, we can get, beta readers for people. We do editing, we do cover design, we'll design ads. We write blurbs, so anything sort of that helps the author do things that distract them from actually writing the book, which is what most authors just want to do. We'll help you with all that other stuff if you need it, right? And it's not just and it's never been just about the services that we can do, but we post the blog topics about a lot of this stuff every week, and you read a lot of those, and that's sort of this is supposed to be sort of like the next evolution of that, and we'll continue to do those articles too. But having this sort of forum allows us to not only dig deeper into some of those topics, but also ideally to involve the authors in the discussion. So not this in this particular podcast, it'll probably just be you and I, but in the future podcasts, the idea was that we would have self-published authors join us to talk about the issues that we're talking about in each podcast, and that way we can get sort of the real world feedback, and some of them will be experts in the subject, and that way it won't be just you and I always talking about stuff.
Absolutely. Well, for those who aren't aware of you, because most people who have been in the self-published space for a while know Hidden Gems, know who you are. But let's talk about, because you started off as a writer and a self-published author, and a pretty successful one at that. So tell us a little bit about that and where you come from.
Sure. Yeah. I, my path to being an author, and I think this is probably true for a lot of authors, wasn't really super straightforward. As a kid, I knew I wanted to write, but and I actually, when I went to university, I went for the writing program, but I got very disillusioned by it, and ended up switching off. And my first few jobs were in IT, and I was a developer for a while, and then I was a product manager, and I was, I had a good career doing that, but it wasn't something that I loved. I always wanted to go back to writing, and the self-publishing boom back in 2012, 2013, when that was happening, I was sort of still in that sort of world of product management, and I just sort of jumped into that with the idea that let's see what happens. I'll write a few things and see if anyone cares, which is, I think, what a lot of us were doing back then. And it turned out they started to sell fairly well, and I was lucky enough to get involved in online community of authors that were all sort of doing the same thing, and they were all helping each other grow as authors and figure out the ever-changing landscape of self-publishing, especially back then. I mean, it still changes all the time. But back then it was so new and it was changing even more. So, we were helping each other. And I think that was sort of because that's how I came up of with a group of authors helping each other. That's sort of always been the way I always thought it should be, right? It should just be authors helping authors. And, we're not really competitors. People don't read just one book or just one author. So it's not like, if I if you're selling a book, that means I can't sell my book, right? We can all sell our books. And so there's no reason to sort of like be secretive and hide, your path to success. And I think that as authors, we all sort of grow together if we share and, figure stuff out together. And so that's sort of how it was going. So, I did that for a couple of years. I actually, I quit my job and I ended up going into publishing full time. And, just to talk about just very briefly about the numbers, I think over the period that I was writing, I'm just checking on Book Report here. I sold 180,000 copies, had 163,000 borrows, had 87 million page reads in KU, and gave away almost 400,000 copies of books. So, that gives me sort of the background of what I needed to start Hidden Gems. And I'm always sort of continuing to experiment and try things and learning from the authors that use us as well as much as, they can learn from us.
What is it they say? A rising tide lifts all ships. And I think
exactly,
because I first met you in that online community, which is great. And I write under a pen name in the same genre as you. And it's very interesting because I've never felt that we're in competition, because even though we write in the same genre, we've always written very different books that aren't quite the same. People can enjoy both, but one is not like the other. And I've been super excited to be part of what Hidden Gems does, because, I have sold 67,000 copies of my books, reached 320,000 readers on Kindle Unlimited, and made over $270,000 in royalties. So I'm always like trying to get to the next level in my own writing, but I'm very much aware of where I am and where you are somewhere where a lot of self-published authors want to be. And that's something we can help them achieve. And then helping other people always ends up helping us to learn more and get better and just develop.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's just a good thing. I mean, I'm Canadian, right? So I'm all about helping and being, friendly and not really trying to, hide things. And so, I've sort of always had that sort of mentality, and the gratifying part of this job for me is always hearing from the authors when they've had their success and they come back and tell me about it. And, any way that we were able to help, or even get them to help themselves. And that's, I think, a big part of what we do as well. And, that's part of why we've always done the blog, and that's why we're going to do this. And, there's free tools on the website just as much as there's author services. So, there's things that, if we can help do, like, I'm happy to help. And I think, that's rewarding in and of itself. So
some of the tools you got are really, really useful. Your keyword organizer, which is free, where you've got the 7 different keywords you can put in when you publish a book. And then you've got this wonderful tool where you can put in all the keywords and it like sorts them out to maximize the space. That's amazing, that particular tool. It's so useful. And the other one is the blurb creator.
Yeah, unfortunately we didn't create that keyword thing until, a couple of years ago. It would have helped me when I was writing and filling in all that stuff. I mean, back when I started, there wasn't 7 different boxes. There was 1 box, but then it became the 7. And then, they just sort of Amazon always gave that impression that you're supposed to use 1 word per box or 1 phrase per box. And people didn't realize that you could just fill it with different keywords in order to get your book, seen by more searches than normal. So, that was just a way to optimize it, and something I wish I had back when I was doing it, more often than I am now.
So, and that's free for anyone to use. And the other tool that you've got that is brilliant is the blurb creator, because I know now that Amazon have this like what you see, what you get editor built into the KDP dashboard, but sometimes it just doesn't work. It doesn't take. And so I still always trust the one on Hidden Gems when I'm doing my blurbs. So like lay it out, format it, then take that and insert it in as the HTML, and it always looks beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, we created that back when they didn't even have have their "what you see is what you get" editor, and so I know that sort of made it less useful. But one of the things that we added was the ability to see what was going to be before the fold, before the read more, before you have to click read more, and a lot of times that's a really important part of knowing what is going to attract people. Like if your first couple sentences are a big hook, and then you go and you realize that they're not even they're not even seen by people because you've written too much. Now half of it is behind the read more. And that's something that, you want to be able to see so that you can optimize your blurb and get more people clicking, right?
And that is massive, because I remember that was my first book in my series. I doubled the conversion rate with the Hidden Gems editor specifically because of that. I used to have the big chunky board header text, and then you couldn't finish the entire sentence. And I literally just changed the font size so I could see where it broke. And that doubled the conversion rate because people read the hook and then they would, wanted to read more. They wanted to get into it. So, yeah,
definitely. That was, I was happy that we were able to do that. Took a bit of guesswork and sort of experimentation, but, it was something that I was really happy that we were able to do. And really, like, that's always kind of what, and we've talked about this in our blog a lot of times too. And I think that's one of the things that I think one of the most important things for self-publishers to really do is not be afraid of experimentation and afraid of trying stuff, because, it's not like back in the day where, you'd send your book off to a publisher and they would do all their typesetting and their covers, and they'd they'd print 1 million copies or however many copies, send them off to bookstores, and you're locked in, right? With self-publishing, you can publish something today, realize you made some massive error, or you've changed your mind about something, or you've discovered something new, and tomorrow fix it and republish it, and immediately those fixes are there, so you're not locked in to any mistakes or any new information that you get, right? So it's important to sort of experiment, not be afraid to try something new and see how it goes, right? And we've written, I think, you wrote an article very recently about being able to, how you can judge the differences you make and sort of evaluate them, sort of to decide whether or not they were net positive or net negative changes.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that we as authors have a tendency to trap ourselves with. There's like this perception versus reality, and you might perceive everything as going great, or you might perceive as everything as being disastrous. But unless you actually know how to look at it objectively using figures and data, then you'll never know for sure. And then sometimes you can think things are being disastrous when actually they're being profitable, or the other way around, which unfortunately happens more often.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's really hard to tell, and without the raw numbers, a lot of times you're just guessing. And so when we're able to break down how to figure that stuff out, I think those are the kind of things that help authors the most. Right.
Well, talking about helping the authors most, and not just authors, so let's talk about why are we chatting on a screen instead of writing a blurb? And it's like, how do we manage to lure Craig out of it's the Canadian wilderness and get him on camera?
Out of my cave. Yeah, I mean, this is, I was saying earlier, this is something we've kind of wanted to do for a while, and I really want to. We were sort of looking about how we could add value to sort of the landscape, and it remains to be seen whether we can. This could be yet another experiment, and whether it works or not, I don't know. We don't know, right? But why not try? Why not see if this is a medium that authors respond to, that helps them, and we can commit to putting these out for at least for a while, just to see every week or so to see how it goes. And if authors think that it's a valuable valuable way to spend their time watching us talk about whatever the issues are, then I'm happy to keep doing them. And if it's not, if everyone thinks it's a big waste of time, then we'll move on to something else, right? So, but I think there's a lot of other podcasts out there. There's a lot of other YouTube videos and stuff. And so whether or not we can add value, I think we can. I think that there's if we're sort of gearing this at self-publishers, we want to involve other self-published authors, have them talking about the things that are most important to them, help their career, what can help their career, what doesn't help their career. And hopefully, the people watching it can learn from it. And, if we can sort of, if this can be interesting to readers sometimes too, then that would be great as well, right? If we can introduce readers to not only to Hidden Gems, but to the authors that are talking to us each week, then, that's another benefit for everybody.
Because, I mean, at the end of the day, all of this kind of starts with the readers. I mean, that's how Hidden Gems started. So for those who might not be aware of it, if they're tuning in for the first time on something, tell us about, at its core, what Hidden Gems does and what ARC means and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, so that was how we started with the ARC service, which is advanced review copy, advanced reader copy. It's I think different people define it different ways, but essentially the idea is you send out an author would send out free copies of their book and to interested readers, and those readers would read them and leave reviews. And we all know how important reviews are in selling a book, and because of that, and because of the fact that I think most authors probably have realized at this point, if they've published, most people don't leave reviews organically. They some do for sure, but if you look at sort of the raw numbers, I've seen all sorts of crazy estimates of you need 1,000 people before one person leaves, 1,000 readers before one person leaves a review, or whatever the numbers are, right? And a lot of the times, especially for new authors, if there's one book that if a reader is sort of trying to decide between two books that are similar and they don't know anything about either of them, and they're only going to buy one, one of the determining factors will be if one has reviews and the other doesn't, because you have that social sort of feeling that, oh, other people have read this. Other people have given this a try, so I will too, versus there's this other book here and that doesn't have any reviews, and so then maybe there's a reason for that or whatever, right? So the idea that reviews help sell books is something that's been around forever, long before Amazon was around. And so because it's so hard to get them organically, we started Hidden Gems to sort of help people get more reviews by allowing them to give us all the information about their book. We have our reader base for all the different genres, and they would then see the information, sign up for the book, and then they get the book, go on Amazon, leave an honest, real review about it, and that's it. Readers get the free books, authors get the much needed reviews, and that's really how it all works.
One of the things I think that for me has always stood out about Hidden Gems, and there are increasing number of services that try and help authors get reviews and things, but for me it's always been clear that your focus has been on the integrity of the entire business. So when you talk about getting authors reviews for their books, it's all done strictly within Amazon's terms of service. And even the small nuances, you're not giving a book in exchange for a review. An author is giving a book to a reader, and if they want to, they can read a review. And what the real value of Hidden Gems is, you help encourage that, facilitate that. And first of all, you give these authors an audience of reviewers in the first place, and then you help those reviewers find it an easy and seamless job to actually upload their review. And the great thing is, for the reader, it's just a source of free books. They can download whichever books they want, and if they want to, and hopefully we do, and we encourage them to do so through your service, they leave a review. And yeah, I just think it's important to put across just how integrity seems to be like the watchword of how you run the business.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. I mean, Amazon's very, very strict about their rules, and their rules are very vague in some places, and they're specific in others. And I think there's reasons, whether they're arguably good reasons or bad reasons, that's a separate issue. But there are reasons why they do things the way they do them, and um, there was a long period of time where people were, or there was whole, let's say overseas call centers, typical, not on a call center, but like set up like a call center where books would come in and all these people would just leave fake reviews on their fake accounts, and Amazon had to shut that down. And it wasn't just for books, it was for every product, right? That was how people sort of gamed the system and got the reviews. And at that point, Amazon shut everything down, and they actually banned reviews on free products for everything except for books. And even for books, the rules are, the reviews have to be from legit users, and they have to be honest, and they have to be voluntary, and they have this and that. And that. So, we, breaking any of those rules, regardless of whether or not you think you'll get caught or not, it puts everyone at risk, right? It puts the reader at risk because they can have their accounts, terminated, or their ability to leave reviews blocked. Authors could have the reviews removed, or they could be completely banned from selling books on Amazon. They could sue the company doing it. So breaking those rules doesn't really benefit anyone. And so, it's always been sort of one of the most important things, is to make sure that we're always following the rules as best that we understand them. And sometimes, they change, and sometimes they don't change, but people think they change. We hear about that all the time. It's like I have on the blog, my rumor busting series, which is, every once in a while we get a panicked email or a set of emails because something's changed, but everyone's sort of left guessing at what that is. And usually it's, the sky is falling type guesses where like, oh no, Amazon's no longer allowing reviews on books. It's like, that's never true, but they're probably doing something that has caused some issue. And it happens sort of, unfortunately, fairly regularly where, some change gets made and nobody knows exactly what it is because Amazon doesn't want to say, and there's a reason. I mean, if they say exactly what they're doing and why they're doing it, then people figure out how to scam them and how to break the rules without breaking the rules, how to bend the rules to their favor. So I understand why Amazon sort of keeps a lot of their stuff close to the vest. Unfortunately, I think a lot of times it's too close to the vest, and they haven't, even their own reps and their own customer service people don't understand the rules, right? And so often you're left sort of arguing your case to even employees that don't get it, and you have to get to the right employee that understands what's going on. So, it's a battle that is ongoing that every author has to navigate. And that's part of what we do as well, is trying to help people understand those rules and navigate those rules. And, when I know that there's some rumor going around and I can help bust it, I'm always more than happy to do that. I think that, when those pop up, this forum is another place where we can sort of discuss those as well.
I was going to say the most important thing about Hidden Gems are the readers who leave reviews, and just talk a bit about the reader experience, because anybody can sign up to become a subscriber for Hidden Gems and get the opportunity to download these books for free in the hopes that they'll leave a review. Talk about the experience from a reader's point of view. What do they get for doing this, and what do they have to do? I mean, yeah, it doesn't cost anything, but I call it like Netflix for books, but now I'll pass over to you and you can tell me what you say.
Yeah, I mean, they sign up, they choose which of I think we have 16 different genres that they're interested in. And then each of those genres have, any number of books that fit within those genres as determined by the author that wrote it and signs up for the service. That's something that they decide when they book, is what type of book it is, what genre it fits in, what the subcategories are within that genre. They upload all of their information, their cover, their blurb, all that stuff, and we send those details out to the readers to determine, because we don't want to send out books to readers that they're not interested in, right? I mean, A, most of the time they're not going to get read, but B, if you're sending people books that they are not interested in and they do read them, then there's more chance that they're not going to like them and leave bad reviews. And, authors typically don't want to get bad reviews. They're a fact of life. But, if you don't want to sort of make it even more possible that you're sending it out to people that are not going to like it, right? So we're careful to send out all of the information from the author about the book. The readers then sign up. There's no quotas. There's no, there's no number of books that they have to sign up for in any given time. There's no set numbers of reviews they need to leave. They see the details. If that's a book that interests them, if they have the time to read it, then they sign up, they read it, they leave a review on Amazon, and then move on to the next one. And then one of the things we're looking at doing is allowing, again, because of Amazon's rules. I mean, they have rules around who can leave reviews, even for books, even though book reviews for free books is the only thing that's still allowed. They do have rules around that. And one of the things that sort of prevents a lot of readers from reading, from leaving reviews is, one of the main rules is you have to have spent $50 on Amazon in the last 12 months to leave a review. And unfortunately, a lot of the people that want the free books, they don't have the money to spend on Amazon. And that always bugs me. I understand why they have that rule, but it really hurts the readers, the legit, honest readers that really need the service more than anyone else. They just want to, they love to read. They don't have the disposable income to be buying the number of books that they have the ability to read. And, they're happy to leave honest reviews about those books, but they can't because they haven't spent the $50 on Amazon. So because of that, we're looking at expanding the program out to allow reviews on sites other than Amazon, like iBooks or Google or Barnes & Noble or Kobo or all that stuff. And that's something that is hopefully coming in the new year.
And that's going to be especially important for authors who are wide, as opposed to those in Kindle Unlimited, which sounds like a great topic for another podcast. I think
for sure. I mean, I think that's one of the big things that people ask about, and I think it's becoming, when we started before Kindle Unlimited, everybody was wide because why not, right? And then Kindle Unlimited came, and then we had to make that decision about whether or not it was worth it to be wide. And so a bunch of us, went one way and a bunch of us went the other way. And I think for a long period of time, a lot of people went, especially in romance, a lot of people decided to be KU specific and be exclusive to Amazon. And I think that hurt a lot of the online retailers for a long period of time. But I think what we're seeing in the industry is sort of a shift to more and more people going wide now, and sort of shunning sort of the Amazon exclusivity requirement. And I think that's a positive for the industry. And that's probably something we're going to spend a lot of time covering.
Absolutely. Now, all of that stuff you were saying about how difficult it is to get reviews and how you have to be within the terms of service and things like that, I think one of the things that authors have to get their head around is when they use Hidden Gems as a service, they have to be aware that, it is not a case of throw money at Craig, get reviews. It's a case of you legitimately give their book up to really, a good group of readers, but they have the ability to not leave a review or not sign up to read your book. They're the ability to leave a review that is not a glowing 5-star review. They're real people leaving real reviews. So I just thought maybe talk about that for a second.
Yeah, I mean, that's always, since we started, that's always been the case. I mean, this is real people on their own accounts. We don't have any ability to, and we're not allowed to influence them. I can't change the reviews. I'm not supposed to even ask them to change the reviews. And I don't. Yeah, there are specific cases where I might reach out to a reviewer, such as, one thing that occasionally happens. Let's say, for example, there's a mystery book and one of the reviews sort of writes a terrible spoiler about who the killer is and the first few sentences or the first few words, like, oh, I can't believe it was the police.
It was the mom.
Yeah, like, and then I'll get this panicked email from the author about it, and in those kind of cases, I'll absolutely send an email. Again, I can't 100% change that review, or I can't change the review, but I can't even 100% guarantee that the review will be changed. But from all the times where that's happened, pretty much as soon as I contact the reviewer and say, hey, by the way, that's a spoiler about the book that sort of ruins it for all other potential readers, they're pretty much 100% of the time they're like very sorry about it. They just weren't thinking. They were excited about the book, they were excited about writing the review, they're like, oh, I can't believe it was such a good, and then they weren't even thinking. And as soon as I let them know, they're very quick to change their review, remove those spoilers, and I think that that's an important thing, the readers just to know that readers in general, they want to do the right thing, right? But that doesn't mean they're also going to love every book that they write. And if an author is coming to the service hoping that means that they're going to get all 5-star reviews when, maybe their book has been out for a while and all the organic reviews are much less than 5 stars, like that's likely not going to happen, right? Like people are going to give their honest feeling about the book. And if other people have not liked it in the past, there's a good chance that these readers won't either, right? So I think a lot of times it's important for an author to look at the reviews they get and determine whether or not they're legitimate criticisms that they should think about trying to fix, either in that book or in future books. Sometimes they're not, not all reviews are going to be, sometimes you might get a review that says, I hated it. That doesn't tell you anything, right? And I don't want reviewers to write reviews like that. And we have some articles that we send to our reviewers about what makes a good book review and a bad book review, and how to sort of include information that is useful. Whether or not they follow that information, again, we can't force them to. But I think, again, in general, most reviewers want to do the right thing. If they don't like the book, though, they have a choice. They don't have to leave a review, regardless of whether they like the book or not. Like you said, every reviewer, we encourage that they leave reviews, but it is up to them. That's one of the Amazon requirements, is that these reviews be voluntary. In general, I think the average review rate, let's say, is over 80%. So if an author got 100 people signing up for their book, on average, that book would get 80 reviews. But whether they like the book or not, there's so many factors that go into that, right? You want to make sure that you're very clear. The author wants to make sure that they're very clear about what the book is and isn't. They don't want to try to sell a book to a group of readers that it wouldn't appeal to them, just to get them to sign up. Just as you don't necessarily want to get those people reading the book in general. There's sort of like different levels of how important it is to attract those to attract the right readers. We often say that when you sell a book, you want to make your blurb sort of as widely appealing as possible, because you want to sell as many copies as you can. For reviews, it's almost the opposite, in the sense that you want to be more narrow about your blurb so that you only attract the right readers. You want to attract the people that are most likely to like the book. And so often, but not always, your Amazon review is your Amazon blurb is not necessarily the same as your ARC blurb, right? You could have two different blurbs, right? Like, we allow you to write whatever you want in the blurb field. It doesn't have to be what you wrote on Amazon. And I encourage authors to think carefully about that, and to sort of like aim the book at the right people. And, whether they do that when they sell it, that's a separate issue that, they have to decide. Then you still run the risk of getting bad reviews, but again, not as many people leave reviews organically, or they maybe just return the book, stop reading, return the book, right? Whereas with the ARC review, even though they are allowed to not leave a review, some people still feel like they should, even if they didn't like the book. And they will, and they'll leave a bad review if they didn't like it, right? So you want to try to minimize that by being, being very specific about who likes your book or who will like your book and who it should appeal to. Make sure that you always put it under the correct genre, that you use right subgenres, that if there are triggers, for example, that you would call those out, stuff like that. Right. And, but bad reviews are inevitable. It's just, I think that there's a lot of authors have a feeling about bad reviews that it's going to sink their book. And I think that, obviously if all the reviews are bad, yeah, it's not good for your book. There's no getting around that. But having a few bad reviews on a book that has mainly good reviews is actually not a bad thing. It's actually a net positive. There's a lot of research out there that shows that it actually helps sales of your books. I mean, these days, readers are savvy enough, like we buy so much stuff online that, and everybody knows that, what appeals to me doesn't necessarily appeal to you. And so there's nothing that everybody loves. There's always people that don't like something. As good as it is, somebody's not going to like it. And so when you see stuff that is, especially when it has a lot of reviews and they're all glowing, a lot of authors or a lot of readers or customers in general of those products, they don't believe it. They think that they're fake. But when you have a few negative reviews, it actually sort of adds legitimacy to the rest of them, so that they see, okay, well, most people like this, there's a few people that don't, but it seems more real, because that is the way normally it would be, is some people won't like it. We look at books like that are universally loved. I often use the Harry Potter example, right? I mean, I'm sure, I know not everybody loves it, but most people do, right? But you look at that, and there's still lots of negative 1-star reviews on the Harry Potter books. There's far more 5-star ones, but it's not like there's 0 1 stars and 0 2 stars. Like, there's people that don't like it. There's people that don't like everything, right? So authors shouldn't be scared of negative reviews, but I think you need to pay attention to them, especially if you're getting more than just a few. And what you want to pay attention to is whether there's the quality of those reviews. Are they people that are just haters? They're just like, I hate this book and whatever, and you can ignore those. Or they're trolls and they're saying something that's not even really about your book. Even those, you can report them to Amazon or whatever. But if everybody is saying sort of the same thing, then that's something you want to look at, right? If all the negative reviews are like, I didn't like the main character, he was falling flat for me, he had no depth to him or whatever, and review after review is saying that, that's something you want to look at, because there may be something there that you can fix.
I think one of the biggest things that authors have to do is take accountability for their books. And I mean, I know when I started off writing books, I would get a lot of bad reviews, and just as you said, sometimes you'd read them and it'd be like, oh, can see now. I started off writing, MMA romance about mixed martial arts fighters. And I got raised, I don't know if she was big in Canada, but there's an author called Jilly Cooper who used to write these big, sporty bonk busters, they called them. And there was always like bed hopping and cheating and affairs and things. And so my first book, I included a lot of that, which of course, in this day and age, romance readers completely hate. So I was getting a lot of like 2 and 3 star reviews saying like, oh my God, the heroine's terrible because she cheated on her husband, even though the husband was a dick. And so, yeah, you have to take accountability for that. If your book is getting a significant number of bad reviews that go across the same point, then maybe you have to be like, this is my fault. And I think the more successful you become as an author, the more you absorb that. And as you said, you don't get so scared of bad reviews. And I remember, I think I told you this story before, one of my favorite 1-star reviews was somebody who was like, this book is practically nothing but pornography. And then underneath, somebody had actually commented on that saying, thank you, I wasn't going to buy this book until I read that, but now I have.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? There's something for everybody, and what one person hates, another person loves for the same reason, right? And I think that's one of the keys. And I think too, like, with the idea that if a bunch of people are not liking something about the book, let's say that wasn't just one person, that gave you that review, right? And it was a whole bunch of people saying, this is there's too much sex. It's whatever, right? And it's all about that.
And I shouldn't have put it in the kids book category.
Yeah. Well, that actually is kind of the point, right? Like sometimes that doesn't mean that there's a problem with your book itself. It means there's a problem with how you marketed the book, right? Maybe your book was marketed as I'm not saying it was, but let's say your book was marketed as a clean romance, and all of a sudden it's got all the sex in it. That doesn't mean it's a bad book and it won't sell. It means that you put it in the wrong category. You've marketed it at the wrong type of people. And all you have to do is now change it to erotica or change it to erotic romance or whatever. And now all of a sudden you might get a ton of people loving your book. And and that's the thing. And exactly, if you took that super extreme and said, oh, I put my romance in the kids book category and you're getting all bad reviews, again, doesn't mean that your book is bad. It means that you've completely messed up on how you marketed it and how you categorized it, right? And so that's another thing that authors sort of want to pay attention to is, are you hitting the audience that you mean to hit with the book?
And it's something I think that you develop and insulate yourself against the more books you write. And I think, there are authors you've worked with for a considerable length of time who you've probably seen the aggregate of their reviews has just increased every single time because every single book they write and publish gets better as they start to understand it. So there's a lot of self-awareness, I think, to becoming a successful self-published author.
Yeah, you need a thick skin too. I mean, some people just don't even read reviews. I did at the beginning. I think after a while I stopped reading them, not because they were overly negative, but I mean, there's not a lot of value in reading all of them, I don't think, other than like maybe an ego boost. If they're all positive, I mean, what are you're reading it really for your ego at that point, right? Like, oh, I love this book. It's an awesome book, right? It's great. If they're all negative, you're more of a masochist, I guess, right? Like you're just reading them and hearing all this bad stuff. You don't need to read every review necessarily to sort of get that feeling about whether your book was good or bad or what the issues were. You can sort of get that from a few of them. But I think, in general, think about whether the readers read them too, right? A lot of readers pay attention just to the number. So, whether you have your 4, your 4.5 or your 3 or whatever your average is, a lot of times they're not really even reading the actual reviews themselves. They're just looking at the numbers. And so that's another reason why when an author gets a few bad reviews and they obsess over them, even though their average is still say 4.8 out of, there's 100 reviews and like 5 of them or 10 of them are negative, but they still have a super high average and they're still worried about those few bad ones. It's like most people aren't even reading those, right? They're just seeing that 4.8 or 4.7 average and they're like, this is a great book, obviously. And sure, there's people that didn't like it, but there's people that don't like everything. So, it's something that I think, it's not something you should completely ignore, but I think it's something that negative reviews are something that maybe some authors pay too much attention to. And then of course there's ones that maybe don't pay enough attention to them, right? But it's just sort of the idea of being self-aware and understanding where your limitations are. You can't just assume that everybody doesn't know what they're talking about because they don't like your book. There might be a reason, right? And again, it might not be your book. It could be how you categorize or market it. But maybe there is something about your book that you can sort of fix and change. It doesn't mean you have to change yourself as a writer to please the fans.
You have to take accountability for yourself as an author.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to grow as an author in general, right? And that's what we all want to do. Nobody's perfect, especially at the beginning, and keep going, keep getting better.
There's one thing that I say to a lot of people, because a lot of people are like, oh wow, well one day I want to get to you. I'm like your stage or your success and stuff. And I think for me, I can say I'm probably not that talented or brilliant. It's just if you write 29 full-length novels and have some vague idea of what you're doing, you are going to be successful to a certain point.
Yeah, I think if you're at the point where you can write 29 and you haven't had to go on to another job, then I think right there that shows that you're success. Everybody's level of success is different too, right? What one person thinks is successful, another person might think is, a failure. It's some people judge based on, some people just want to sell a few books, just want to get their book out in the bookstore. And to them, that's success, right? Whereas others need to make a certain amount to make a living. And what that living looks like to one person is different to another based on where you live and your, you know, your lifestyle and your family situation and et cetera, right? So, you know, I think as long as somebody is getting to the level of success that's important to them, that's all that matters, right?
Absolutely. Well, you know what? We are reaching the top of the hour, so we should probably start like circling things up. Now, you mentioned earlier that this is not going to be just the Craig and Roland show moving forward, that we have plans for this podcast. So tell us about your ideas and plans.
Yeah, I mean, like you've mentioned, I don't want to, I want to include other authors. So I think the goal is for us to get as many other authors into the fold as we can, and sort of find the topics find the authors that match the topics that we want to talk about every week. And you know, I'm in a position where you know, there's about 4,000 to 5,000 authors that have used our services in the past, and that I'm in contact with through the newsletter, through the blog, through the, you know, using the services on the site. And a lot of those authors, I think, are interested, you know, from what I've heard and talking to a few of them and such, that they want to be a part of this, and they want to sort of talk to other authors as a whole, and sort of help, you know, discuss whatever the issues are of the day, and help and learn. And that's what we're all here for, really. So yeah, we want to talk about different stuff every week. I think, you know, you and I have sort of talked about a number of different topics that could work. You know, when things that are very time sensitive, like I mentioned, rumors or Amazon issues or stuff that sort of pops up, we can jump on sort of the discussion of those if we have something to say about them, or if we want to get some kind of message out, if it's looking like, you know, authors are starting to panic about a certain issue, and maybe there's something we can do to help them sort of understand what's really happening, because often what they think is happening is not necessarily what's really happening. If we can talk about writing things, you know, we talked about things like, you know, what makes a good hero, what makes a good villain, you know, stuff like that. We could talk about a lot of wide issues. You know, I think one of the things that a lot of authors wonder about when they're going wide is how they can advertise wide. You know, how if you're advertising on Amazon, you're only advertising for Amazon. If you're advertising on Facebook, do you need an ad for every single different bookstore that you're selling to, you know, ebook store that you're selling to? So advertising wide is one thing that I think a lot of authors would like to know about. And we can have authors that are already doing that come on and sort of talk to us about what they're doing and what works and what doesn't, right? We can talk about different avenues there are for publishing, like, you know, the blogs I had done on Radish. You know, as things like that come up and the industry continues to change, we can talk about that. I'm happy to always experiment and go through and try different things. And I can go through those things as I test them. And, you know, it's I can still write the blogs about them, but there's a lot more you can do when you can discuss them sort of with a group of people that have had their own experiences with those things too.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about might also appeal to readers and subscribers. I mean, when you talk about, if we got a panel of authors together and spoke about, you know, what makes a good hero, what makes a good villain, what are the challenges you face writing things, I think a lot of readers will find that interesting. So I think we're going to have a good selection of topics to discuss.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, if anyone listening has ideas for topics, they can always let us know as well. Because I mean, you know, like, I don't like, just like we're saying, we don't want it to be the Craig and Roland show. We don't want it to only be topics that we think are interesting to you. We want to hear about it. If there's topics you want us to dig into, then you know, I'm happy to take suggestions from anyone who wants to give them.
You heard it here first. Okay, so we're going to wrap up now, and then as a final thing, as a wrap up, let's just talk once again about the two things that people might want to take action on from, you know, being a fan of books, being somebody who wants to read and review books. what should they do next?
Well, if you're a reader and you want to be a part of the program, you just go to our landing page, which I'm sure we'll have a link to at some point magically, but
Somewhere, yeah.
And then that allows you to sign up. All it needs is your email address and your list of the genres you want to hear about. If you can review on Amazon and you want free books, then this is the program for you. And then for any authors that want to get help with anything that they're doing, they can go to the author services page on our website. And all the free tools we talked about, the services that we offer, as well as there's a link to the blog, and in the blog you can sort by things that are specific to authors, specific to marketing, specific to writing, whatever. They can see a lot of the stuff that we've written in the past, and if they have anything they want to hear about in the future, just let us know.
Absolutely. Well, Craig, this has been a lot of fun. Hopefully people will enjoy it, and we'll be back very soon with the second edition. We haven't quite got a title for that yet, but thank you very much.
All right. I'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Ciao.